Aloha, inspired moneymakers. Welcome to another episode of Inspired Money, the live stream podcast where we invite a panel of experts to help empower us to make more, give more, and live more. Today, our focus is on the art of giving back, creative ways to make a difference. Giving back is more than just charity. It's about understanding what value or what you find valuable, finding meaningful ways to channel your time, talent, and treasures to advance your cause. Wendy Steele, founder of Impact 100, a nonprofit organization with over 60 chapters across the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. She's been a past guest on this podcast, and she taught me that giving back can significantly benefit your health. But what does it mean to give back? I think it requires an introspective journey that starts with identifying what's meaningful to you and then exploring how you can make a contribution. Today, we aim to uncover innovative ways to give back. How can we do better? Can we approach philanthropy differently? Join us as we explore these questions and discover creative strategies for making a positive impact on the world. Before we begin, Inspired Money is brought to you by my financial advisory firm, Runnymede Capital Management. We can help you to plan, invest, and worry less. If you need financial planning or need help with your investments, book a call with me at inspiredmoney.fm/call. I'm happy to explore your situation, your needs, and point you in the right direction. Now let's welcome in our panel of experts. We have Kat Rosqueta, is a founding executive director at the Center of High Impact Philanthropy at the University of Pennsylvania. She serves as faculty co-director of the High Impact Philanthropy Academy, as well as adjunct faculty at the School of Social Policy and Practice, with an extensive experience in philanthropy, nonprofit management, and social impact. She's held leadership roles at McKinsey & Company, New Schools Venture Fund, and various civic organizations. Welcome, Kat. So excited to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks.
It's taken several attempts, but we made it happen. So
we did it.
I have a big smile on my face. You know, sometimes most of us do not feel that we're Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, or Mackenzie Scott. Can you talk about high impact philanthropy versus high input?
Yes. Well, it's true. None of us are Mackenzie Scott or Bill Gates, but almost all of us have some resources that we can use to make the world a better place. And so, you know, when we first launched the Center for High Impact Philanthropy, people would say, well, I can't possibly practice high impact philanthropy. I'm not a billionaire. And that always confused me because I thought, well, wait a second. If you're only focused on how much money you have to give, that really is just high input philanthropy. What high impact philanthropy is all about is no matter how much you have to give, whether it's $5 or $1 billion, how can you give it so that it can go as far as it can in helping others, in making the world a better place? So high impact philanthropy was never about how much to give, but really how well you give to create positive change.
Love it. So all are welcome at this giving table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all are needed, I would say. Like if we collectively want to see the kind of world we all want to live in, then we all need to be thinking about how can we make our philanthropic resources go as far as it can.
Love it. Next, we have Adam McCurdie. He's co-founder and co-CEO of Humanitix, a ticketing platform that reinvests booking fees into education projects for disadvantaged children around the world. Under his leadership, Humanitix has become a pioneering social enterprise, merging technology with impactful philanthropy. Adam, welcome. You're usually in Australia, but you're in New York today.
Yeah, I'll still say g'day. How you doing? Great to be here.
Love it. And I shared with you that I am a Humanitix user, found that it has lower fees than the platform I was using previously. And this is an area, like this is a touchy subject, booking fees for tickets. Like, I think, in my opinion, it's like universally hated that a lot of these ticketing platforms charge these quote unquote convenience fees. How did you come up with the idea that you could turn booking fees for, positive use?
Well, it started by generally being inspired by social enterprise as a very captivating model for how to create sustainable, lasting change, transforming business activities and then the profits that the business makes into sustainable funding streams for some of the world's most impactful charities to create epic impact. And a lot of the social enterprises we saw being successful were very inspiring, but often, it might be a cafe or, maybe a bottled soap brand, these types of things, but very few examples in software and technology. And so with that, we started to explore, well, what would be an industry that could be disrupted by a social enterprise? And events ticketing really stood out to us for that reason, where there's these billions of dollars in notorious booking fees being charged to customers who question why the fees have to be so high and other practices that customers are not too happy about, and that potentially could be the right fit for disruption of the social enterprise. On that point, we saw the opportunity as well that for a social enterprise to really thrive, yes, it's exciting and very enticing for customers to see that the business, like in our case, we give away 100% of profits from the booking fees to children's charities, which is fantastic. However, it's a blunder to rely too heavily on the customer or your client using your product purely because you have a more ethical point of difference. What's really, really helpful for any social enterprise to scale, and why we did what we did, is to compete on the more traditional, capitalist competitive terms, which is quality of product and the price of your service. And so that's where we spotted the opportunity to lower booking fees significantly for everyone involved, and putting all of our resources into engineering and product to make hopefully the best ticketing platform that event hosts discover on the internet, to make it a total no-brainer for people to switch. And that's very much been our strategy from day one, and we've seen the benefits of that play out now.
Well, thank you for disrupting this space. Rounding out our panel today, we have a friend of the podcast, Mariko Gordon. She's a finance maverick who founded a $2.5 billion money management firm from scratch. She now mentors entrepreneurs, advocates for women's empowerment, and offers personalized investment advice and financial planning at her registered investment advisory firm, Uzume. Mariko, welcome back.
Hey, it's always great to be here. We always
Since
have such great conversations. Yeah.
Since I last saw you, I think that you were giving back by doing some programming associated with fundraising for the Maui wildfires.
Yes, yeah. And I've been involved with nonprofits, whether it's the Japanese American National Museum or right now the Asian American Writers Workshop. So and I teach at the YWCA of Oahu, and Hawaii, interestingly, because Andy and I have this Hawaiian connection, has, I think, the most most foundations per capita. I mean, it's a very giving culture, and a lot of the small business owners, the entrepreneurs who are starting, really a huge motivator is to be successful in business in order to reinvest in the community and give back in the community. So it's great. Like, I feel like whatever help I can do in terms of helping their businesses succeed is also helping the community thrive as well too. So it's really great to work in an integrated way where you have all the creativity of business and all of that energy, and you also create that business ecosystem with integrity, with your values, and also understanding that you're part of a larger ecosystem that you can't just exploit and extract, but you have to also contribute to. And I think so many people, business owners and individuals, are absolutely in the wheelhouse of what Kat and Adam are talking about.
Well, I'm excited to have all of you here. That was a great fun fact. Let's jump right in, and we're going to be exploring creative ways to make a difference.
Impact investing combines financial returns with positive social and environmental outcomes. Unlike traditional philanthropy, it seeks measurable benefits alongside profits. The market, now valued at over $1 trillion, is expanding into sectors like healthcare, sustainable agriculture, and renewable energy. Large institutions such as BlackRock and Goldman Sachs have adopted this strategy, driven by growing client demand in regulatory frameworks like the EU's Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. Standardized metrics developed by IRIS and the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB, ensure transparency and address challenges like impact washing. Impact investing aligns financial goals with societal benefits, leveraging more assets for greater philanthropic purposes. Although balancing these goals presents challenges, this approach empowers investors to foster a more sustainable and equitable world. By understanding impact investing, modern philanthropists can effectively contribute to societal progress while achieving financial gains. This innovative strategy not only amplifies philanthropic impact, but also helps create a resilient and inclusive future.
Kat, if you can get us started, this question, how can I invest my money so it makes the most good? Is that a question that high impact philanthropists ask?
For sure. And that's because, if you think of it, there are kind of three different types of capital that can advance positive social change, or in some cases impede it. There's philanthropy to nonprofits. In the United States, that was over $400 billion worth of philanthropic capital went to nonprofits, public charities. But that's really just a drop in the ocean compared to the financial investment capital available in the investment markets, and what government, especially in a country, in a democracy like the United States, what government can spend to address needs in communities. So if where you're starting is, how can all the money that I have some influence over make a bigger difference, you have to think across all three sectors. And there are actually ways to practice impact investing with nonprofits as well as with for-profits. The idea is, just like with that introductory slide, is looking for those opportunities where you can create social impact alongside some non-negative 100 financial return. Because that's what a philanthropic gift is. You are out $100 if you make a $100 donation, but you're hoping there's a social return, that somebody, a family who didn't know where their next meal is going to come from, doesn't have to worry about that. With impact investing, you could, for example, make a loan to a nonprofit at a no interest or very low interest. You're going to get that $100 back, and then you can keep loaning it to other nonprofits who have some way to pay back. Or you could back a social enterprise, a new social enterprise like Humanitix and others. There have been some very big bets on biotech, where you have a nonprofit or a foundation that cares about things like new cures or ways to address diseases, and wound up investing in a biotech that actually in the end yielded some sort of drug or other treatment that for which there's a huge market, in which case you were able to have a very big financial return along with addressing a very important health need. So there is a whole range of impact investing opportunities. And I think for anybody who cares about social impact, it's making sure you're not thinking of it too narrowly and looking for those opportunities, whether it's a nonprofit that you're giving money to or for-profit. There are lots of opportunities where you can address a social impact and have a better than a negative 100% financial return.
Mariko, what are your thoughts as a money manager? Like, have you thought about impact investing for a client's portfolio and then measuring not only the financial return on the investment, but the social aspect as well?
I'd say less the measurement on the social impact, because I think that's a little, a little harder for me to know. But what I have a number of clients who have online businesses who have created really great audiences who really believe in them, and they share their causes, and they will create either workshops or classes or products, and donate sometimes like Adam, everything. Sometimes it's half, but it's really an integrated part of their process, that the same way that they're sharing of themselves, that they share the causes that they care about, and share the story of the causes that they care about, and are active participants in raising money for the causes. And so I think that that's something that I think business owners can really think more creatively about doing it. It's rather than a separate thing, it can be integrated in their business, and kind of create a virtual cycle. The other thing too is that I think people often underestimate the variety of vehicles that I think are available for making a difference. So, for example, Impact 100, where it's local community built. Everyone contributes into. It's kind of like the old immigrant styles, where everyone contributes into a pot, and then whoever needs the money, gets to invest it. It's this idea that I think philanthropy can be small scale, community led. And the community deciding where to allocate in a very grassroots way, because it's really the grassroots who really need, like $5,000 to a grassroots organization in your backyard is going to do so much more with that than some of the larger ones. And so I think that there's that awareness or curiosity growing about to what Kat is speaking about, ways that one can put money to work, whether it's slow money to lend to farmers, be part of the regenerative farming, or just to feel like your money can, again, it's not just charity, it's actually you're contributing to building something too.
It sounds like impact investing can come in many forms. Adam, can you talk about Humanitix? Because essentially you're reinvesting the booking fees into these charitable projects. Can you share how this impact investing model has influenced the growth and success of your platform?
With pleasure. I mean, when we first set up Humanitix, Josh and I, we self-funded the organization, and it's a non-profit with no equity. And as it became successful, we then reached out to Philanthropists to help fund the growth and the scaling of Humanitix. Now, the whole concept and why it ought to be exciting for them to participate in is that if Humanitix works, we're not going to be coming back year on year like a traditional charity asking for more and more money. Because if Humanitix works, it's operating a successful business that not only covers its own costs, but also produces a surplus profit that it then distributes to making great impact, not needing any more external capital from funders. And so that's now what we've continued to do, and we operate now, we've operated for years independent of external capital, producing more and more profit, and essentially creating a greater and greater multiple on the initial capital that it took to seed fund Humanitix, which is the whole exciting concept of something like a social enterprise. To touch on some of the points that were raised before, it's a very exciting and interesting world, this impact investing, which is this idea that there's lots of ways to do it, where as a funder, either as a donor or an impact investor, it's exciting to have this idea that you can now have a return on your capital, either just to get your money back or a very, very low return. I think what's really interesting for the person who's making the impact investment or giving is to consider why you're wanting to cycle the capital, and that will dictate what you might want to be getting out of that. It's very exciting to want to get your money back, and often that might be what you want to do if the enterprise has been successful enough to return your money to you. However, in some situations, you might want to forego that entirely because you feel that keeping the money inside the nonprofit or the social enterprise that you gave the money to in the first place is still the most beneficial and impactful place for the money to be parked in. Think of it in, for example, the venture capital world, in the for-profit startup investment world. Venture capitalists make many, many bets on lots of startups, and it's a very high-risk place to be investing. But the idea is that one or a handful of your investments at best are going to work. And when they do work, what does the venture capitalist do? They don't extract their money out of that startup. They do the exact opposite. They participate in Series B, in Series C, in Series D. You double down on your wins. And so if that's what venture capitalists are doing purely for the sake of doubling down on the winners, on the enterprises that are doing so well, you might want to consider as an impact investor that when you find even a grassroots foundation that ends up doing so well and really being impactful in their community such that they could return the money to you, you might want to think, well, I might want to just leave the money with them because they're a winner and they're doing more and more. If anything, I might want to go double down in the analogy of a Series B or a Series C. So it's a nuanced conversation, and I think it's important to realize and recognize in yourself why you're wanting to cycle capital and reevaluating, wait a minute, with the money that I could get back, if I could think right now, where is the best place that I know of to park this money for the purpose of genuine social impact? The answer might be you have that opportunity, but you forgo it because the organization that you gave the money to in the first place is something that is a flywheel. And that's definitely and excitingly what we've seen from our initial funders who see the growth and success of Humanitix. And we could return the money to them, but they've said, no, keep going, because there's a flywheel that's generating here that it's beneficial that Humanitix has more capital to keep running. So don't return the capital to us. This is the winner. We can scale this up to tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that Humanitix is giving away, and that's where we prefer our impact money to be sitting.
I love the idea that it's self-funding and sustainable. I want to ask you, what is your motivation? Because for background, you were a consultant in technology. Josh was a hedge fund manager. So it appears that you guys both in careers that are lucrative potentially and could then serve on different boards and just donate privately to support different charities or causes that move you. But why leave those careers to start a social enterprise? I mean, I think that's the mentality that I'd love to see more often. But in you, what was the motivation?
Curiosity, in a nutshell. The two of us were inspired by social enterprises, inspired by reading books from great professors like Muhammad Yunus, who invented microfinance in Bangladesh. And we were incredibly inspired by a career path that is truly innovative for genuine social impact and scratching at new ways that we can structure business and structure our professional careers such that we're doing something that's genuinely exciting, genuinely impactful, genuinely meaningful. And that is a lifestyle that is so much better to us than, through whatever means possible, the alternative being to personally enrich ourselves as much as we can to then donate away. And that is for people who do that and genuinely give money away after enriching themselves is a fantastic strategy for philanthropy. And there's a lot to be said for that. But for us personally, as a personal motivation, what was more enticing and more exciting is to not delay the impact work. Like, what if you can find ways where you can infuse the two concepts simultaneously, run as successful as possible technology SaaS company that ingrained in its model is giving away all of its profits, and that helps it grow, which creates a feedback loop. And is that possible? No one's done that before, particularly in SaaS. And that was just too interesting to not try ourselves.
And I'm smiling as I'm hearing Adam talk because I have the privilege of being at a university, and what Adam is describing about what drew him to found a social enterprise, that is a clear trend. Where you have a generation of young people who are saying, no, I don't want to live my life in silos, where I make all the money here and then at some point in another phase I give it away. I mean, really, they are thinking now about where they work, where they live, what they buy, and there is a thread around how can I do this consistent with my values, and hopefully contributing to a better world. And I'm reminded of a colleague of mine, a Wharton professor who studies social enterprise and social entrepreneurship. And what he's found is that, and he focuses specifically on ventures that are started while the individuals are still on campus, right? So they're still undergraduate or graduate students, they're still young. And increasingly, a very high percentage of those entrepreneurs have an explicit social impact thesis in their ventures, either the product or the way they source it or the operations. So, for somebody like me who cares about social impact, what the story Adam told about himself, we're just seeing it more and more is in this younger generation of social entrepreneurs and leaders.
It's so interesting you say that, because one of the big question marks we had from many potential funders was, how are you going to attract talent if you can't offer them equity? At the end of the day, we've got to build great software with great engineers competing up against other great engineers who are getting offered equity by other startups and scale-ups. And how on earth are you going to attract great talent? And it's exactly this trend where people are saying, I want to earn a good income, but I just more deeply, I want to not have my life in silos. I want to be a part of something meaningful. I want to participate as a holistic part in my life of something that I'm proud and is consistent with my values.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great thing that I'm observing too, is this idea of living holistically in a life with integrity, but also what I'm seeing a lot is this desire for community. So Adam, one of the things that came up earlier in our pre-chat with Andy is that your customer service support is made up of real human beings, right? And not just chatbots. And that part of humaning is so hard in with the planet, global warming, toxic capitalism, everything, right? The humaning has become so hard, and technology can be so isolating, that to use all the best parts about technology, but also do it in a way that promotes our humanity and promotes the need for connection, I think is really great. That seeing it to that level tells me just how completely, how holistically you're running the whole thing. But that's also what I'm saying. I mean, I think, I'm kind of an old fart, but younger generations, like, we do not need to perpetuate this bullshit, and I want to have a life with meaning, and how can I, how can I function well, in a society that can be very dysfunctional, and how can I help correct that, and also be able to look at myself in the mirror, and I just find all that so exciting. I really, really do.
I find it all very encouraging.
Yes.
For those watching live, please drop a comment to share with us where you're watching from. I saw Dan Morris, I think, on Facebook. So shout out to Dan and Rachel. Let's move to the next segment.
Corporate social responsibility, CSR, involves companies taking accountability for their impact on society and the environment through initiatives like employee volunteer programs, green practices, ethical labor standards, and partnerships with nonprofits. CSR integrates social and environmental concerns into business models, enhancing corporate reputation, employee engagement, and customer loyalty. Key trends in CSR for 2024 include embedding CSR into core business strategies, focusing on community needs, and using technology for CSR management. Companies are addressing supply chain emissions and leveraging AI for sustainability. Transparency and avoiding greenwashing are critical, with stricter regulations ensuring authenticity. Balancing profit with purpose is a significant challenge, but the benefits of integrating CSR into business strategies are considerable. Understanding CSR's scope and impact helps businesses contribute to societal well-being while achieving economic success. This approach inspires more companies to adopt sustainable and ethical practices, fostering a more equitable and resilient world.
Mariko, do you see a relationship between corporate social responsibility and long-term financial performance in companies that you invest in?
Absolutely. There's all kinds of research around, organizations that are more diverse or, led by non-traditional people. It's just that here's the thing, right? This worshiping at the altar of shareholder value, that's the only responsibility that a publicly traded company should that's the mission, that's their directive, the prime directive, right, is just so screwed up, because a company is a complex organism. It's alive, it lives in an ecosystem, and if you only focus on returns for the shareholder, you are going to harm your customers, you are going to harm your employees, you are going to harm your vendors. So you have to take care of the whole ecosystem. You can't just focus on one thing. And the shareholder value, that's also been put up as a prime directive, and then also management incentives in terms of how people are paid. And again, better performers are the ones where the management, perform the pay is reasonable. I mean, just, there's a way to run these businesses properly that's not about wokeness or anything else. It's actually about risk management. It's about good business practices. If you have toxic, dysfunctional workplaces, your employee productivity is not going to be what is your employees are. Your turnover is going to be higher. It's just like, just do the right thing, and your returns will compound. And that this kind of, I saw the evolution of all of this with the worshiping the altar of shareholders are the only, that has a very short-term decision making that's very exploitative, very extractive, and you end up killing the golden goose by making her lay way more eggs than is healthy for her, rather than having the whole value of all the eggs that a goose might otherwise do, and let some of those eggs hatch and create other geese, which is kind of what Adam is doing. But absolutely, I think the companies, and I was a small cap money manager, so smaller companies, you could really see the impact of what leadership would be, and how the values, when companies were run humanely for the long term, without greed being the operative principle, with this idea that you're a steward of an entire economic ecosystem, participating in a larger ecosystem. Those companies were the ones that you felt in safe hands buying and holding for a long period of time.
Kat, any key trends that you've observed in corporate social responsibility and how that impacts, like how that can make our money more impactful?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think it's always good to remember that the role that business plays versus government versus the private philanthropic nonprofit sector, that keeps evolving. I think Mariko used the word sort of a toxic capitalism. There was a time in this country where there was an expectation that corporations would do well by its employees. There was an expectation that you were a good corporate citizen in the sort of broader society. And so I think that what's happening now, and you see it in, I'll go back to the fact that I'm at a university, you see it in where people want to work. You see it in the kinds of information they seek from future employers. I think a lot of people are recognizing the limitations of such a short-term view of what business is about. And because things like the longevity and robustness and sustainability of your supply chain, things like how well and equitably do you treat all your employees, things like how much does the geographic community where your headquarters are, how much are you viewed as a good corporate citizen in that community? Those are all material considerations for the strength of that company, both as a member of society, but also as a financial engine and an economic engine to its owners and to our economy. So, there has been in the press some sort of, I think of it more as political backlash against CSR and what that means. But when I look at this generation of young people who are entering the workforce and business leaders, and for sure the folks who come to our high impact philanthropy academy, they are taking the much broader view, the one that Mariko outlined, and recognize that what CSR is looking at, those really are material concerns. That's not just a sort of like political correctness consideration.
I think as a financial advisor, as an analyst, my simplistic observation is that many publicly traded companies, the CEOs are being rewarded on the stock performance. And I think the number that I read consistently is I think that the tenure of the average American CEO is something like 5 years. It's not that long.
Yeah.
And therefore, the incentive is how high can you get your stock price in that 5-year period so that you can make your fortune and get paid. So there's this emphasis on C-suite compensation and then also getting the stock price up. Adam, as a leader of a social enterprise, what are your thoughts on this? CEO compensation, ethical labor standards, green practices, et cetera.
I think what we're seeing in the likes of CSR and other methods that companies are being having to step up to provide greater societal output for the community. It's not the solution, but it's a very exciting indicator of where things are moving as people are waking up more and more to saying, hang on a minute, what are these companies doing? And who would I prefer to purchase my goods or services from when I have a range of options of different companies that behave in different ways? And there's unfortunately an element of greenwashing and virtue signaling, but there's also a huge element of companies that are genuinely trying to go way beyond what is traditionally expected of them to produce outsized gains for society. Interestingly enough, that type of behavior it's an extension of capitalism. It's not an argument against capitalism. It's a better, more enhanced. It's more hardcore capitalism, actually. Adam Smith, the writer of Wealth of Nations, the whole point of what he was getting at with capitalism, as compared to a feudal system, was that if you let companies do their thing, the best products and services will rise to the top, and there will be this thing, the invisible hand, which will produce really, really good outcomes for society, better for society compared with the feudal system. Therefore, this version of capitalism is better because it produces better outcomes for society. Now, if you then fast forward and look at what's happening now with companies, social enterprises, who say, great, I'm going to compete in this capitalist model. I'm going to come up with a good or a service that has to be competitive on price, quality, etc. And that's the only way, my product will rise to the top. And on top of that, I'm going to find all these unique ways to have a greater, an invisible hand that's now more visible, essentially, is what's happening, to produce even better outcomes for society. Well, I think Adam Smith would look at that and say, that's what I'm about. Yeah, this is capitalism. And so when we have our competitors, other ticketing platforms who look at us, we say, we're beating you on being better capitalists than you. Event hosts are choosing to switch to Humanitix on all the things of the features of the product, price, all these great things, and we give away all of our profits to the world's best children's charities, and they love that. That you got beat because of on competitive grounds, and that's capitalism. So this is a very exciting indicator, in my view, of where capitalism is moving to, rather than it being a debate against capitalism.
It's great to see capitalism alive and well and enhanced and doing good. Let's go to the next segment.
I was just going to add to that. And I feel like, and we have to think about what every sector can do. And we live in a sort of capitalist economy, because if we say capital bad, right, capital is bad, business is bad, well, that leaves us far fewer resources to make the world a better place, because that would leave us only with government and the $400 billion of philanthropic capital. And I can tell you, some of the things that we are challenged with today, that is not enough.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's often a misdirected debate against capitalism with no alternatives provided. And that is not a very constructive or helpful thing. Yes, there are many issues with the way companies operate, and they operate under capitalism. But you can't just say, therefore, let's get rid of capitalism. I don't know what we do next, but not this. That's not very constructive. We have to build on the tools that we've got and mature things with the situation in context.
And there's definitely ways to do that.
Yeah, history has shown that the alternatives are not so good. So let's move to the next segment.
Technology is transforming philanthropy, making it easier for individuals and organizations to engage in charitable activities. Key innovations include crowdfunding platforms, blockchain for transparency, and mobile apps for donations. Crowdfunding platforms like GoFundMe and Kickstarter democratize fundraising by allowing many people to contribute small amounts to support a cause, building a community of engaged supporters. Blockchain technology ensures transparency and accountability by providing verifiable records of donations, increasing trust, and reducing fraud. Artificial intelligence and data analytics optimize philanthropic efforts by analyzing donor data to predict giving behaviors and personalize engagement strategies. Mobile apps like Give Directly and Charity Miles simplify donations and integrate social features, promoting wider engagement. Virtual volunteering and digital fundraising events have also become popular, allowing nonprofits to engage volunteers and donors globally. These technologies make philanthropy more accessible, transparent, and efficient, helping nonprofits enhance fundraising efforts and achieve greater social impact. Adopting these innovations is crucial for the future success of philanthropic endeavors.
Kat, how has technology changed the landscape of philanthropy?
Well, like that segment showed, in many ways it has made it easier for lots of people to give, to know who others give to find giving opportunities. So in that way, it's brought a very helpful efficiency to the sort of philanthropic sector and marketplace. I think, technology, to me, it's a utility, and that is the upside of it, right? Is a freer flow of money to organizations that can use it to do good. I think some of the concern is making sure that we don't lose sight, or we figure out how to not have that remove what has always been a really important part of philanthropic activity, which is the human connection, right? The relationships, and those relationships help you understand the problem you're trying to solve, give you different perspectives on what will help. And it's those real world relationships also that sort of keep create a community of practice around philanthropy. And at least I know with some fundraisers, so for example, now you can give, you can go to a website and give to a nonprofit. You could give through a giving platform or through your donor advised fund. Actually, one of the entrepreneurs who started here at Penn now has an app so that you can draw from your donor advised fund on the nonprofit's website. It all goes really quickly. And a lot of the nonprofit organizations, though very grateful for those funds, don't know who their supporters are, literally have no relationship to these people. And that's just something to pay attention to, because it's those relationships that are sort of the foundation of the society and our philanthropic sector. So that's the only thing that I think the efficiency and the movement of funds is great. The options and the democratization of philanthropy is great. Now let's just make sure that we're not losing the relationships between givers and receivers.
It's interesting that it happens faster and more easily, but then you lose the human element. Yes. Adam, you were a consultant in tech and an engineer by training. What innovations have you found to be the most transformative?
I think in the nonprofit sector, a lot of it is coming down to transparency and monitoring and measuring and the pace of feedback of what you can understand with whether or not a particular intervention or a particular program is working or whether it's not working, and then being able to disseminate that information very, very effectively. In the nonprofit or charity sector, the difference between a not so good charity and a fantastic charity is literally 1,000-fold, quite literally 1,000 times more effective. So finding great charities has been made easier and easier now with technology and that genuine dissemination of information from many different institutions and organizations that are doing a genuine best effort job to use technology to find what are the best programs globally or locally for you to fund and why. And that information has never been more available. And I think that information is really the key secret sauce to impactful programs, getting the capital that they need, and people also having the confidence to fund those programs. We benefit from it personally at Humanitix because we have this big question every time we give away money. Where are we going to give away money, and what's the most impactful place to put it, and who are we teaming up with to give insight, and what technologies are we using to identify the best place to put our money from the profits that we give away to produce the greatest amount of impact. Also spotting out the nonprofits that often sound great, but sometimes you actually get a negative outcome, and there'll be failures, and that happens in the charity sector. But really being able to understand what's working and what's not, and having a pace of innovation is something that I think the nonprofit sector has been in greater and greater need of, and they're getting that now.
Mariko, your thoughts?
So I have a couple of thoughts. One is accessibility to technology or to benefit, like on the charity side, right? To have the sophistication or the resources to be able to connect, or even just the awareness. Just are we leaving behind some of the organizations that might sort of need this help the most? The other thing too is the same way that fragmentation and dissemination and all of that technology makes it a lot easier. That makes, say, for example, meme stocks happen, right? Can also make a sort of a popularity contest, if there's something that can go viral that rises above the noise, and that there is a lot more noisiness and a lot more herd following potential that then can suck up some of the resources, and so that's another thing that I would worry about, as a kind of unintended negative consequence to all the positive things that technology enables.
Do you think blockchain will have an impact?
Personally, do I think blockchain will have an impact?
Yeah.
Just culturally, from what I've seen, I know that, you mentioned the transparency that it brings. I don't know that it does. And I also think that there's a lot of inefficiency that can be created by it. And also just from a larger picture, zooming out, the amount of energy required to do all of that. So I don't know that you need that to be able to have transparency, to be able to have speed and effectiveness. I don't see that as a sort of secret weapon to making, to helping have a positive impact on the world. So I'm personally having trouble seeing the connection, but I'm the oldest one in the room.
Kat or Adam, want to weigh in?
Suspect.
Yeah, I think we'll go back to the comment I made earlier, is that all technology, including it's a utility, and it can help us do certain things better or rethink what needs to get done. But when I think of, the word philanthropy is love of humankind, and at its sort of best, it is unlocking the potential of human beings and creating a vibrant and strong society, right? Like, that is the work of people that could be assisted here and there with new technology, but that core work of philanthropy, I don't think there's any technology that's going to be transformative.
Yeah, I see it much the same way. I think that blockchain as a technology stands to make a great impact just on its own. I mean, it can solve a lot of problems, particularly problems related to trust. And so there'll be lots of applications for blockchain, whether it be dealing with corruption in various countries or otherwise. Wherever there's a trust problem, there's potentially and likely a very good application for something like blockchain, which that's its strength. In terms of flow of money, or in this case Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, I don't yet see the impact. I mean, whether people are donating Bitcoin or a dollar that then gets transferred into paying for something, to do something, to create social impact, that seems to be much the same. So I'm not at the moment seeing much of an impact or a difference there as to what currency, with crypto and otherwise, that's being donated to produce impact.
I mean, I sort of think of blockchain as sort of, there was a time where because certain regions didn't have the same kind of telephonic infrastructure, cell phones allowed us to advance. It's a similar thing where you don't have those kinds of trusted institutions. Blockchain will allow us to advance. So I do think that there will be improvements. But then at the end of the day, you get down to the hard work of how do you help people thrive? So there's,
And I don't think it affects the psychology of giving, right? The difference between, as Adam had mentioned earlier, giving and the sort of, give a person a fish instead of teaching them how to fish, the nature of the regenerative, social enterprise that you can give and fund to, but it actually it creates, it's generative. So I think blockchain doesn't do that, but I can see how it would really impact, how it would be helpful on the trust issues.
That's a perfect segue. Social enterprise. We're going to go to segment 4.
Social entrepreneurship involves developing innovative solutions to address social, cultural, or environmental challenges while maintaining financial sustainability. These enterprises blend market-driven approaches with social impact goals, demonstrating how business can be a force for good. Key characteristics of social entrepreneurs include creativity, entrepreneurial quality, social impact, and ethical behavior. They envision a better future, implement innovative strategies, and build teams to achieve lasting change. Trends in social entrepreneurship emphasize collaboration, technology integration, and resilience. Strategic partnerships amplify impact, while technologies like blockchain and AI enhance accountability and efficiency. Social enterprises must continuously adapt to navigate evolving social issues, challenges include securing funding and balancing social and financial goals. Social entrepreneurs often face difficulties attracting investors due to perceived risks and lower financial returns. Creative approaches in social entrepreneurship show that businesses can drive social change. By understanding successful models and strategies, aspiring social entrepreneurs and established organizations can make a meaningful impact, offering a fresh perspective on philanthropy.
Adam, you talked about the self-funding sustainability in the way that Humanitix operates like a for-profit business, but 100% of profits can go to charity. Did you get any resistance or pushback from investors at the outset who said, hey, this is a for-profit business, like, go make a profit?
We got a lot. It's obviously a very unique and newer model. When, like I said, me and Josh self-funded Humanitix for the first couple of years to prove the pilot, but then very soon got into the phase of needing to raise money for the next phase of its growth. And our intention was always that it would be so interesting and cool and impactful if Humanitix could retain its status as a non-profit, having no equity, and therefore being able to redistribute any profit that it does make into great charities without having to consider, returns to shareholders. And so in raising money, we were going to high net worth individuals who've obviously made a lot of money from the capital markets. And they said, many of them said, what are you doing? Just make a great business, donate a bit of money. So it was very tough to get many of them to see what we were getting at here. It's also the only way at that stage we could raise money with that model in mind was for these people to donate money to Humanitix as a philanthropist. And that took a lot of courage. We eventually found our people and philanthropists that were courageous enough to come on the journey with us. But Humanitix it makes sense now because we give away millions of dollars every single year from our profits to the world's best charities, and it makes sense. But just go back a few years before we're donating anything, right in the early days, and imagine me looking at a philanthropist in the eye saying, look, I've got this ticketing company and I want you to donate to my ticketing company because just hear me out here. It's really going to make sense if this thing works. That's a very tough sell, particularly to a traditional philanthropist who's, is obviously looking at more traditional philanthropy. But, hopefully with more, the idea is that, success stories like Humanitix and others will more and more create a precedent and a path for people to follow. And it's just case studies and examples of what's really possible here and where philanthropy and more just impact dollars in general can go further.
Kat, you talked about the university. What are the key characteristics that make a successful social entrepreneur?
I'd have to really defer to my colleague Tyler Rye, who seriously studies this. I feel like it's in a way we're talking about leaders, period, and who have explicitly chosen to create a new venture with a social impact lens. So, when I think about, well, who can do that? One, to start something brand new, probably the biggest thing is you have to be on some level an optimist, because you are saying that somehow you think you can create something new that will be successful from a financial and sort of solvency standpoint and be able to address a social issue. And so if I compare a social entrepreneur to other entrepreneurs and other leaders, I think there's got to be some real deep optimism and sense of agency in the ability to change things, right? Because it is not for the faint of heart, right? You're taking on 2 jobs, right? And one of them, at least the social impact part of it, it's often addressing societal issues that have always been with us and that have persisted for a while. So that's not quite answering your question, what makes a great social entrepreneur, but it is something that I feel like distinguishes a social entrepreneur from somebody who would not label themselves that.
Adam, in your case, do you feel the pressure of those two jobs, or do you just focus on the one side, knowing that the other will benefit?
I do. I mean, to be honest, I just want to live a life where at the end of the day, I can tell myself I tried my best. And that to me is just a really key motivator, as it is for Josh, my co-founder. And that we tried our best to participate in society in the most meaningful, interesting way possible. And, picking your battles is very difficult as a social enterprise. I think navigating the two worlds, you're making a business and you're trying to produce impact at the same time, is incredibly difficult, particularly if you're trying to produce genuine impact, not just washing it. And I think what's so challenging is for many social entrepreneurs is that because a lot of the key motivation can be around the impact, is that you too heavily focus on the impact at the beginning and neglect the business. So then you eventually have this well-intentioned, beautiful, but unsustainable business that has not been able to get to where it needs to thrive and fund its own operations, etc. And so there's a discipline that's required there in the process, but it's very, very challenging when you're genuinely trying to do both. When we saw it when we came to picking our charity partners of where we give away our money, and we intentionally, in the very early days when we weren't giving away much money because we weren't making much profit, we just used a common sense approach. We said, okay, great, tell us, let's have a quick look at a handful of really great, well-known charities, and we'll give it there. And later on, when we're making more and more money, we'll dedicate more and more time to being more thoughtful with which charity partners we're donating to. And I think that was a really good decision that we made, because it allowed us to give awesome money to, a small amount of money to some great charities, but allowed us to focus on the business. And you can see how tempting it would have been at the very early days to dive into charity analysis and getting involved with our impact partners, or even trying to, which I think is often a blunder, where we as the charity ourselves start to do the frontline impact rather than giving money away to great charities that are doing it better than ourselves. And then now you're trying to run a frontline charity and run a business at the same time, and that's just going to stretch your resources and give you a greater chance of failure, which already any startup, whether social enterprise or not, has a very high chance of failure. And so there's just a cautious order of events that I think you need to have a lot of discipline about as a social entrepreneur who likely has a lot of ambition, a good heart, but needing to check yourself as to which problem you want to bite off next.
Excellent insights. Mariko, any trends in social entrepreneurship that you think will shape the future of this sector?
I think more local, more human connection, human to human connection, but also more local. Cultivating your own backyard, so to speak. I think also what I'm seeing is people taking a more integrative way. So whether it's having more native plants, ecosystems, more foraging, more local food production, less waste stream. I just see that the bigger trends are more local, more connection, and more tied to the planet and nature as well. It's becoming kind of the hierarchy of needs, right? Let's go back to clean water, clean soil, good food. How do we get it to the right people? It's just I just feel like there's a wholesale kind of shift to shift in values to live your best, most creative life and doing it in a way that doesn't create, like it's not performative, that you're making conscious choices as a consumer to not just, buy at places that support things, but buy less things, right? Those kinds of, sharing economy. There's just a lot that I think people are making individual choices that are stacking up instead of taking a more performative view of, I'm this kind of a person, therefore I don't own oil stocks. It's much more, how do I not buy that dress? How do I not do fast? Well, what is it? But I feel like people are really questioning things in a very deep way. And that trickles into how they decide to run their businesses and do their businesses, and how they decide to have those businesses impact the community. Sorry, that was a long way around Robin Hood's barn, but it's just getting more interesting and deeper is how I would, this is a short version.
But with more people and finite resources, yes, I don't think our problems are going away anytime soon. So there are definitely important issues that need to be addressed that we can all focus upon. Let's bring it home with our last segment.
Building and sustaining community networks through philanthropy involves creating strong, interconnected relationships among local stakeholders, businesses, government entities, and nonprofits. These networks amplify philanthropic impact by fostering collaboration, resource sharing, and collective action. Engaging local stakeholders, including community members, businesses, and government agencies, ensures initiatives address real community needs. This engagement fosters trust and active participation. Philanthropic organizations can act as conveners, bringing together various parties to discuss issues, share resources, and develop joint solutions. Building partnerships with local businesses and government entities creates synergies that enhance the effectiveness of philanthropic initiatives. Community networks can pool resources and expertise, tackling larger and more complex issues than individual organizations could manage alone. These networks also provide a support system, ensuring continued efforts in greater inclusivity by considering diverse perspectives. Understanding and implementing these strategies enhances philanthropic activities and drives meaningful social change.
Adam, Humanitix has partnered with Altasian, Google, and Canva. Can you discuss the role of partnerships in amplifying your philanthropic impact?
Yeah, I mean, with Google, we won the Google.org Impact Challenge, which was a fantastic challenge that they run, looking for the most highly impactful technology-based nonprofits or social enterprises, and that was game-changing capital for us. And then we've as well started to use a range of their technologies to help with our platform. Atlassian as well, an Australian, started in Australia as one of our biggest success stories in technology. They came up with the biggest amount of money in the early days, which was totally transformative, with giving trust to others that, wow, the Atlassian Foundation looked heavily into us. They're inspired by what we're doing. And that became a catalyst for more funders to have confidence that, Humanitix was a good opportunity. They also have a range of great technology and tools that we use on a day-to-day basis, mainly to manage our engineering builds and our engineering product. And so that's been very, very complementary. And they are one of those organizations who, they're a listed NASDAQ company, but the way that they run their organization and their foundation, and the way their foundation looks at giving away money from a genuine impact lens compared to a marketing lens is very, very obvious when you look at it. And it's incredibly inspiring, because I think that's what more and more organizations like them, even who are listed on the NASDAQ, ought to be doing, because you see it when you're living it as an employee. All of their staff can see what their foundation is doing to make impact rather than make a marketing splash. And that really, really conveys and then produces these great partnerships, which we benefited from.
I think that this panel has been unanimous in believing that philanthropy is very centric, human centric. The people are critical. Kat, can you talk about communities in this space?
Sure. I mean, sort of philanthropy, like life, is a team sport, and I think that's why. And you mentioned earlier, one of the biggest trends in philanthropy right now is the growth of giving circles, where individuals, often geographically co-located, will come together, and each one of those individuals may not have that much money, but collectively, not only do they bring more money to good causes in their communities, they bring wealth and depth of insight as to what the priority problems are. Collectively, they can be advocates so that it's not just philanthropy, but also they can hold government accountable. So, everything in that segment, we are all more effective and powerful together, including in philanthropy. And the benefit is we all benefit from good philanthropy, right? If you think of philanthropy for social impact is about the use of private resources to create public goods. We all, no matter what city we live in, we benefit from the fact that fewer people are homeless, that there's better health care, that more of our children can read at grade level, that our streets are safe, right? This is all the kind of work that philanthropy and nonprofits address. And our communities are stronger when they do. And we absolutely are more effective as philanthropists when we see ourselves as part of a team and don't go out there like lone rangers.
Mariko, how about your thoughts on building and sustaining community networks? You brought up local several times.
Yeah, no, I think the local giving circles, I think volunteering in a local way. I think also people underestimate how generous I think they can be, with even if they're not super rich, and just how much more satisfying it is if you're not just giving to, you're not just writing a check, but you're actually seeing the fiber of your money being embedded in the community and the growth that it's doing. There's also just so much more that can be done with volunteering in short stints as well too. And I would just say, like, the biggest thing is connecting with other people, and it's just post-pandemic, post everything. And so much is causing fragmentation and isolation. And I just think that back to just getting 2 people in a room, right? And then 3 people, and then 4 people. And then that way we know when one of us is hurting. And there's a sort of the philanthropy of energy, the philanthropy of the casserole dish, the philanthropy of just knowing that someone is hurting and that you can tell them that they care. And you just multiply. Like, that's the fractal. That's the very basic fractal of philanthropy, is that human to human connection, and we can build and build and build on it. And I just feel like start local, start hyper local, and know the people, and then that way you know where the need is, you know where the hurt is, and then that and you can build on that.
Any closing thoughts from Kat or Adam?
I mean, I'll sort of end where we started, which is just encouragement. Anyone can practice high impact philanthropy. And, our center exists to provide free resources for individuals who are trying to identify some of the best nonprofit organizations, trying to understand what other resources and data are available to support your giving journey. But just encourage everybody, all of the people watching, that you can make a bigger and bigger difference. And there are so many ways you can do it. And you heard a breath of them during our conversation.
Adam?
I'd just say to anyone out there either looking to start a company or who is influential at a company, that the benefits of pursuing a genuine social impact outside of the traditional domain of the company's goods or services is there are so many more benefits than I could have ever imagined. And what you'll see is that when you do that, everyone who is participating in your company and your clients and your customers, they see that and they experience it. And it's because it is real. And when it's not real, your staff, your employees will see straight through it. And you have to live with that, and you have to perpetuate that lie. And that's just not the experience you want to give yourself. And when you give yourself a genuine experience, everyone else participates in that genuine experience. And the benefits create an epic feedback loop that we're experiencing now and trying our best to document as we keep going, because the benefits are so beyond what we could have imagined to running a company in this fashion. And I'm not sure if it's feasible that every company gives away 100% of its profits like us. But part of our experiment that we wanted to show is that even at the most extreme end, you can give away 100%, whether or not you choose to. And the benefits are, wow, everyone feels it and knows it when it's genuine.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you to everyone who has stuck with us to the end. My apologies for going a little bit long, to both the audience and to our panelists. But I'm so inspired by this discussion. I love the idea that anyone can be a philanthropist. Anybody can be a high impact philanthropist. And I think I come away with really, I hope that our listeners and viewers will take a little time to think about impact and the cycle of your money and how you can have a bigger social impact. You know, how can you make improvements? How can you think differently and act differently for a bigger social impact? So thank you once again to our panelists. You can find Kat Rosqueta, Founding Executive Director at the Center for High Impact Philanthropy at the University of Pennsylvania. She's at well, let me see. I think it's impact.upenn.edu. Hopefully I've got that right. Adam McCurdie, co-founder and co-CEO of Humanitix, the ticketing platform that reinvests booking fees into educational projects for disadvantaged children. You can try out the platform at humanitix.com. I'm a fan and a user. And Mariko Gordon, CFA, she mentors entrepreneurs, advocates for women's empowerment. You can find her at marikogordon.com. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, everybody. Inspired Money will be back next week, Wednesday, July 3rd. We're going to be talking about the power of entrepreneurship, inspiring stories of success. We have 2 past Inspired Money guests coming back as guest panelists. We have host of Entrepreneurs on Fire, John Lee Dumas, and Gwen Whiting, founder of The Phil, founder of The Laundress, which was acquired by Unilever for a reported $100 million. And Shirley will be adding to that panel by next week. So until next time, do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens. Thanks, everyone.